Hi guys, welcome to Sourcing Classes. This is Hima Hegde presenting before you a video session on the anthropology related current affairs. To begin with, let us look at the topics under light for the week. The week as in 7th of June to 12th of June. Firstly, we have archaeology and the subtopics. Further, we have the tribal affairs, likewise the physical or the biological anthropology, socio-cultural anthropology, and then languages and personalities. The detailed elaboration of each of these subtopics will be given in the A&D document, that is, the Anthropology News Diary document, which is uploaded on a regular basis in the official Sourcing Classes website www.sourcingclasses.com. Do pay a visit. So here we have the topics under light for today: genome sequencing, ethnocentrism, Birsa Munda, humanity in diversity. So firstly, genome sequencing. This is something which is mostly discussed, or in recent days it has been under light quite a lot. So what exactly is it? So genome sequencing is basically figuring out the order of DNA nucleotides. What are nucleotides? See, DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid, and these are the building blocks of the same, the building blocks of the nucleic acid or bases. In a genome, the order of adenine, cytosine, guanines and thymine. Now these are the chemicals present in the DNA, A, C, G and T. Now they make up the organism's DNA. Human genome is made up of 23 chromosome pairs, 23 pairs of chromosomes with a total of about 3 billion DNA base pairs. 3 billion DNA base pairs. There are 24 distinct human chromosomes, in which 22 autosomal chromosomes plus the sex determining chromosomes, that is X and Y. These are the sex determining chromosomes, X and Y chromosomes. Now chromosomes 1 to 22, as you have seen 23 pairs are there, from 1 to 22 they are roughly arranged in the decreasing size. And the somatic cells, what are somatic cells? They are any cells of the body. The cells of the body, they usually have one copy of chromosomes 1 to 22 from each parent plus an X chromosome from the mother and either an X or Y chromosome from the father. So that is a total of 46. The estimate of the number of human genes has been repeatedly revised down. It has been repeatedly revised down from the initial prediction of 1 lakh or more, as genome sequence quality and gene finding methods have improved and could continue to drop further. The genome sequence will represent a valuable shortcut. This will represent a valuable shortcut, helping the scientists find genes much more easily and quickly. A genome sequence does contain some clues about where genes are, even though scientists are just learning to interpret these clues. Now finally, the genes account for less than 25% of the DNA in the genome, and so knowing the entire genome sequence will help the scientists study the part of the genome which are outside, that is outside the genes. Now this includes the regulatory regions that control how genes are turned on and off, as well as long stretches of nonsense or junk DNA. They are so called because the significance of it hasn't been established. Now we have ethnocentrism. Now this is a part of socio-cultural anthropology. Now ethnocentrism is a term applied to the cultural or ethnic bias, whether conscious or unconscious, in which an individual views the world from the perspective of his or her own group, establishing the in-group as archetypal and rating all other groups with reference to this ideal. This form of tunnel vision often results in an inability to adequately understand cultures that are different from one's own, and value judgments that preference the in-group and assert its inherent superiority, thus linking the concept of ethnocentrism to multiple forms of shamanism and prejudice, that is the preconceived notion, including nationalism, tribalism, racism, and even sexism, and the disability discrimination to mention. Now, ethnocentrism is a concept that was coined within anthropology and formed the cornerstone of its early evolutionary theory before becoming one of the discipline's primary social critiques. It continues to both challenge and inspire the anthropologists, shifting in meaning and application with theoretical trends and across the subdisciplines. For many anthropologists in the Bayesian tradition, ethnocentrism is the antithesis of anthropology, that is, a mindset that it actively counters through cultural relativism, education, and applied activities. Cultural relativism, education, and applied activities, such as cultural brokering. Physical anthropologists have tended to define the concept more generally as preferential cooperation with a defined in-group and to interrogate its potential evolutionary origins, while the postmodern trend has been a growing suspicion of the anthropologist's own ability to transcend the cultural bias in his or her analysis and presentation of the other, leading to an emphasis on reflexivity and subjective diversity. Now, outside of the discipline, the ethnocentrism is a topic of biologists, political scientists, communication experts, psychologists, and sociologists, particularly in the area of politics, identity, and conflict. Marketing has seized on the term to describe consumers who prefer domestically produced goods, and derivative ethnocentric has become a common criticism in the era of globalization for those assuming their own cultural superiority. Moving on, we have Birsa Munda. Now, who was Birsa Munda? Though he lived a very short span of life, Birsa Munda is known to have mobilized the tribal community against the British and had also forced the colonial officials to introduce laws protecting the land rights of the tribals. Now, Birsa Munda was a young freedom fighter and a tribal leader whose spirit of activism in the late 19th century is remembered to be a strong mark of protest against British rule in India. Born and raised in the tribal belt around Jharkhand and Bihar, Birsa Munda's achievements are known to be even more remarkable by virtue of the fact that he came to acquire them when he was 25. In recognition of his impact on the nationalist movement, the state of Jharkhand was created on his birth anniversary in 2000. Birsa, born on November 15, 1875, Birsa spent much of his childhood moving from one village to another along with his parents. He belonged to the Munda tribe in Chota Nagpur Plateau area. He received his early education at Salga under the guidance of his teacher Jaipal Nag. On the recommendation of this teacher, Birsa converted to Christianity in order to join the German mission school. He, however, opted out of the school after a few years. The impact of Christianity was felt in the way he came to realize to religion later. Having gained awareness of the British colonial rule and the efforts of the missionaries to convert tribals to Christianity, Birsa started the faith of Birset. Soon members of Munda and Oraon also became the members. That is, these communities also started joining the Birsite sect, and it turned into a challenge to British conversion activities. Now basically, though though Birsa Munda lived a short span of life, and the fact that the movement died soon after his death, Birsa Munda is known to have mobilized the tribal community against the British and had also introduced laws in protecting the land rights of the tribals. Birsa's achievements as a young tribal revolutionary has continued to be celebrated over decades, and now he has successfully carved out a space for himself in popular and folk literature, academia and mass media. So lastly, we have another topic from the socio-cultural anthropology part, that is humanity in diversity. Now culture is more than just arts. It's the totality of systems of behavior and thought that is transmitted from one generation to the next, that we learn as we grow up as a part of a particular community in a particular place and time. Now it includes traditions, religious and ethical beliefs, social norms and taboos. It's how we are taught to make sense of the world around us, determine what is right or wrong, and how to live our lives. It is something that goes beyond the biological drives or instincts. Every animal needs to eat and drink, but culture is what humans have developed to guide us in what way we can eat, when we should eat, how we must eat. It is something learned, symbolic and shared. Culture is something that is fundamentally human and fundamentally humanizing. According to the United Nations, 3/4 of the world's major conflicts have a cultural dimension. You only need to look at the headlines throughout the years to realize the truth of this statement. Even now, faced with existential threat such as climate change and a worldwide pandemic, there are those who use culture as the justification for war and atrocity. States that are more interested in mobilizing an army hijack the culture and turn it into an engine of repression, all in the service of a national identity that excludes inconvenient narratives and unwanted minorities. Some of the very greatest crimes against humanity, such as ethnic cleansing or genocide, are fueled by the perverse desire to wipe out cultures other than one's own. Culture can also be wrongfully twisted in other ways, not as a weapon but as a shield to cover the long-standing inequalities and injustice. Cultural relativism, when taken to mean that an action that is justified within a culture cannot be judged as wrong by one outside it, undermines the idea of universal human rights and also has been used to justify the continuation of historical practices that are objectively harmful to the disadvantaged. Now this includes concepts such as sexist double standards and child marriages. Culture is not static. It is important to understand that. Static is something that is stagnant, not changing. Culture is basically dynamic. It keeps changing. It is ever evolving. This is something that those who hide behind cultural relativism refuse to understand. To value the culture and heritage is not the same as demanding the impossible, that it remains unchanged. Humans change. We evolve with the same or with the times, and so too our traditions and customs. To respect the culture and heritage means that we do not erase our past, and we don't discard the traditions simply because they are old. We see their longevity instead as a mark of distinction, as a thread that ties us to those who have gone before us. Culture is something that makes us distinctly human, but for culture to be truly humanizing, it must be one that seeks to dominate difference, but one that celebrates our diversity. That's about it. Now that's about it for today's video. Hope you found it informative. Thank you.